Welcome to the Customer First Show, putting customers at the heart of your business. Podcast. I'm really pleased to have Hannah Foley join me today. Hannah, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi Naeem, thanks for having me. So I'm Hannah Foley. I founded a company called Yak CX just under 12 months ago. I'm based in the UK in Warwickshire, and after spending about 15 years in FTSE 100, predominantly B2B organisations, heading up CX teams, I decided to go into the world of consultancy last year and set up my own firm. Looking forward to and working with companies who really want to embrace customer experience but don't necessarily know where to start, and really want to get under the skin of their customers' sort of wants and needs so they can really set themselves up for success. So that's me.
Brilliant. So just to make it really clear, because some people get really confused, what is customer experience? Could you give us maybe your spin or your definition, maybe even with an example of what your principles for customer experience are, maybe?
Yeah, actually, it's quite pertinent. My 75-year-old aunt asked me, so she said, "So what do you actually do? What do I tell my friends that you do?" So I sort of said to her, I said, "I basically help businesses to make sure that when their customers come to see them and buy from them, that they're going to come back again because they've had a really good experience." So for me, there's a really important kind of fundamental principle of making sure that the basics are all in line. So from my experience, lots of businesses quite often want to go after the shiny new things. Actually, you've got to make sure that the foundations are really, really solid, and that your customers come in and get the basic things that they expect every time. And then you start to build on those nice things, those things that are going to make them go, wow. So for example, as employers, it's really, really important that we're really clear to our businesses, to our teams, to our frontline staff, but also our back office staff, that we're really clear on what we want to deliver to our customers. What is it that we do and how do we want to do it? And then when we look to improve, everybody does want to run after that kind of wow factor, but actually let's make sure that our customers aren't picking their jaws up off the floor because we didn't deliver on the basics first. So for example, this is the example I gave my aunt yesterday, was if you go to the supermarket, if you can't get a parking space, there's no point if we've got a nice, shiny, self-service, AI, personalised, powered terminal inside, because they're already halfway down the road on the way to the next supermarket because they couldn't get a parking space. So understanding those customer journeys, understanding the path that your customer takes, and how you make sure that that path always leads back to you every time.
Yeah, I like that. And getting the basics right, because as you say, so many companies are so engrossed in having the best and the shiniest website that they forget the fundamental things that, people didn't come to traipse through your website, they came to buy something. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can have widgets doing everything, but if you haven't got basic things that help them to just achieve the goal that they set out to achieve in the first place, then you've just confused them and you've just made things really difficult.
So is that one of the common things that you see where people are trying to do customer experience, they're trying to improve that customer journey? Is that the kind of thing that you see regularly going wrong, or can you give some examples of where people don't quite get it right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of exactly the point there, that they overlook truly putting themselves in the shoes of the customer. And if you don't really honestly put yourselves in the shoes of the customer, you end up fixing things that are a problem for the company, internal processes, and then businesses go, well, I just invested all that money, but it's not actually delivered me any return. I've not got a return on investment for my customer experience investment. Yeah. Because actually they've not fixed something that was a problem for the customer, or they've not improved something to deliver greater customer value. So it's really important to understand those journeys that your customer goes on. What did they want to achieve, and how easy, how frictionless did you make it for them to actually achieve that? And once you've delivered that, you can keep improving on it, but you can then add the interesting things around it. You can do the nice stuff around there. So I think a lot of companies will cut corners on that kind of customer understanding area of customer experience. So one, they don't actually talk to customers. They don't actually watch customers and see what they do and how they behave. And employees are an absolutely brilliant source of information and insight. But equally, all of us, if we work, and having worked on the client side, we've all had our own biases of the things that we thought were the problems, we thought would, if we fix that, might make our lives a bit easier. So that bias, you have to balance that out with an independent view. And that independent view and thought comes from the customer and comes from understanding them and truly mapping the customer's journey, and not that internal process map of the things that we do internally that the customer probably never even sees.
Understand. So the customer journey really has to be about the customer rather than ourselves. Now, when we were talking the other day, you shared a really good example of a project, of a voice of customer project at a retail client. And I thought that was a really good example of some work that you've done recently. Do you want to maybe give a snippet of that?
I worked in a company where we had about 600 retail stores, and we did all of the customer understanding. We did all of the voice of the customer work. We had probably more than we needed. We did some ethnographic studies where we had our customers keep mobile diaries, and we had like a kind of an online focus group where we could ask them questions, and they took pictures and we observed them. We had surveys. We really got under the skin of what their kind of needs were and their drivers of loyalty. And we also then understood how our stores were performing in terms of meeting those needs and some of the frustrations that our customers had. So we took the big things and we created kind of like strategic work themes, work streams. We did all the big things. But we also saw that there was a really big gap from our kind of top performing stores to our bottom performing stores. So the gap was huge. And when we talk about the basics, it's really important that consistency of service, because our customers wouldn't just shop in one of those stores, they would shop in different stores. So it was really important that whether they were in Edinburgh or they were in London or they were in Skegness, that they got the same service, the same level of service. So we decided to take a kind of different approach to it, thinking kind of with a more sort of CX customer hat, that rather than going, these are the things you have to do, there was obviously a reason why they weren't doing what they needed to do today. So we created a CX Champions Network. So we actually took the kind of the CX heroes within the business and from those really high performing stores, and we trained them. So we trained the trainers, and we had them, 80 of those guys, going out to the kind of the bottom quartile of stores and training them. So we did workshops, training sessions where they one of their own people, their own colleagues, their own peers, took them through the feedback that their customers had given. They talked about how that made them feel, what that made them think about. They looked at how they ran their stores, the back side of it, and they had everybody from the store team involved in that, including the drivers, the warehouse staff. Everybody in the team was a part of that training session, and we got relief store managers in to watch the counters and to look after the stores whilst they were doing those training sessions. So the team got to feel like the plan they were creating was a plan that they'd all bought into. So they went through the insight and they effectively looked at what the big things that they wanted to fix were and created like a start, stop, continue plan. So we made it really simple for them, but things where they said, actually, we need to do more of that, or these are things that we just stop doing because we're just doing them and they're hampering our ability to do things. And actually, these are the things that our customers value. Those are our kind of non-negotiables. We've got to keep doing those. And then they created their own action plans. And then we built that kind of that sort of way forward from the team. It came from within. We monitored, we tracked the progress, and we got some really great results from that. And it was up for kind of one of the CX awards. It was a finalist in the CX award. So it was a really good project because it wasn't a CX team in a head office going, this is what you need to do, these are the things you need to fix, and this is 3 months you've got to do it. We had to get the teams to buy into why they needed to change and do things differently. And ultimately those were the guys that then came back and said, brilliant, Dave, when he comes in now every Thursday to pick up his order, he's commenting on how much better and how much quicker it is and how much less time he has to spend in the queue. So it was a really good project to be a part of.
Yeah, good. So in that instance there, you've talked really not just about a CX initiative, but a business transformation initiative. And obviously that's a lot bigger than just doing a piece of work. And is that maybe where your name comes from, Yak CX? Because it's a bit of a trek, maybe, not just a walk in the countryside. Am I reading too much into that?
No, that's it. That was the kind of the root of setting up Yak CX. Is I went to base camp in 2012, Everest base camp, and it was was brilliant. And I was trying to think of the things that was my goal, was to get from the UK to Everest Base Camp, and what helped me to get there. And yaks were one of the things there. And actually the core essence of a yak is they can weather any storm, which is what you want your business to do. They equipped with the right tools and equipment, so they've got the hooves, they've got the coat, that for the conditions that they're going to come up against, and they're really, really well respected because of in Nepal, in the country they work in. So those are kind of all the facets you want your business to be. So when you talk about business transformation through CX, it's about building a business and an operation and a customer experience that is built to last and delivers that sustainable success for the future. So yeah, that's where that came from. And then in the book, so the book, that was kind of the theme of the chapter that I've written in the book, was around, if you're going to set out on a journey, it's really important to understand where you're starting from, that starting point, because if you're not really honest about where you're starting from, you'll have problems down the line. So being honest about your weaknesses, the challenges that are ahead, and acknowledging those, and acknowledging them not just within your team, but actually to your leadership, to your people, that the stakeholders on your project, to say, these are some of the challenges that we're going to overcome, and we're going to have to overcome to deliver the transformation that we need to do. Because if we don't overcome these, or don't acknowledge them and make sure we're aware of them, then we're going to have them as stumbling blocks down the line. So I won't say any more on the chapter, but that's what it's about. It's about going on a trek. Your CX journey is not going to be a sprint. It's going to be a trek, and there's going to be bumps in the road, but how you prepare for them is really important at the very beginning of your journey.
So what's the one big piece of advice then you want to give to the people who are listening? We're in a new decade, a new year. Well, it's March already. What's that one piece of advice that Hannah's going to give to the people listening today?
Oh, I think it does come from that aspect of our consumers today. Everything is on demand. You get films on demand, Netflix on demand. My kids think I'm on demand now because everything is there. It's at, I think, their fingertips. And thinking about how you respond to your customers, how you talk to them, how you deliver things in a way that meets their expectations, and really being honest about their expectations. And just because your business hasn't changed doesn't mean consumer expectations haven't changed. And if you don't do something today, that gap just gets bigger because your customers' expectations go here and you stay the same. And being really honest about how you narrow that gap and how you get ahead of your competition is something that businesses can't shy away from today.
Okay, I love it. So if the listeners want to get in contact with Hannah Foley from Yak CX, what's the best way?
Oh, well, I love Instagram. I'm on Instagram at YakCX, and then LinkedIn. I'm on every blooming social channel, but yeah, those are my favourite. So get on LinkedIn or Instagram and say hello.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, look, thank you very much for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you soon at the conference, and see how Yak CX grows.